Welcome, my darlings, to my humble chateau. Please make yourself very comfortable. Relax your mind and release your imagination to me. I will bring you a story to entrance and entertain. Perhaps a frightening one. Perhaps a steampunk. Perhaps a bit of mythology. Anyway, sit back, enjoy, and subscribe to me. The Collected Tales, Chapter 11, Heather and Foxglove, by Gelfwyn. How long we stood in that damp cellar I could not say. Voices came occasionally muffled by the dirt. Emily was now focused only on a stone wall. Her eyes were wide and worried. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I saw that the shelves still stood against the far wall, and something was on the shelves still. Crocks? Jars? Who knew how old this place was? I could understand abandoning it. I had no doubt that Broken Hill was a cursed landscape. No one would want to raise a family here. Maybe no one had been allowed to. Without warning, Emily moved to the wall she'd been staring at, grabbed up some abandoned tool and attacking the mortar between the stones. Old, damp, and sandy, it came out easily. In minutes, she had dragged the first stone out. I used my phone as a flashlight, briefly noticing no signal here. I was looking for something to help with digging, but also was curious about the shelves. Now you think I would know better than to be curious about anything. Skulls, neatly lined up and facing me. Some damaged, some whole. Some white, some gray. Some still had blood stains. I wondered if they'd always been here or just appeared for us, or just for me. Emily was still tearing stones out of the wall. She had a decent hole revealing dark dirt behind it. I had to wonder why she was digging rather than just going back up the stairs. But if she wanted through that wall, then I would help. I found a metal pipe that was still solid and attacked the wall with all the rage I now carried for this land and its corrupted people. Sunlight poured in suddenly as the dirt fell around our feet blinded me. Also, there was a shock of heat that surprised me. If Emily was surprised, I didn't know she was making the hole large enough for us both fit through and then scrambling up to the surface. A summer day, hot, dry air stealing your breath away. The dirt around us was baked hard, strangling whatever crop had been planted here. Certainly was not spring wheat. I felt I should have been more surprised that we were in the hidden field. Instead, I just had proof that there was a connection. Emily coughed at the dust and heat and started stumbling towards a gap in the trees. The witch's cauldron was little more than a muddy swirl beyond it. We waded into the water and half swam, half crawled through the drought-stricken muck to the forest. The one Granny said time got confused in. At least none of the hunters would think to come here seeking us, but how would we get back? I didn't know. Nor did I know the fate of the deputy. What if the hunters had found him? What if, having lost us, they'd gone to Granny Tansy's? Emily, at least, didn't seem plagued with these questions. She was traveling steadily on, sometimes stopping to look about, then continuing. The mud dried on us and leaves stuck to it. She hit my hand when I tried to clean some of it off. Camouflage. We could blend in easier to the forest. I decided I wasn't curious of what we would need to hide from. Night came and we were both so exhausted. We were stumbling when she pushed open a door to an odd-looking barn. The scent of smoke and tobacco hit me. Not cigarettes, but the raw scent of cured tobacco. This was a firing barn. She gathered firewood and tossed it into a small room off to one side. Can't be out of sight tonight. Not till out of these woods. Not alone. Alone we'll be separated. I sort of understood, but why I would need firewood when it was so scalding hot I couldn't imagine. Emily was blushing and moved to be at least a bit hidden, and squatted down, not looking at me. It reminded me of my own bladder, and once she was done, I used the faint cover of the pile of sawdust as well. We would need water, and soon, I knew. Wondering if there'd be any wells near the barn. But like as not, nothing we would be able or should attempt to drink. Typhoid did still exist. We gathered every last piece of firewood before shutting ourselves into the small, offshoot room. Once, long or with the way time is twisted, maybe just months ago, people had stripped and prepared the cured tobacco leaves for market in here. As that was a deep winter chore, there was a small pot-bellied stove in this room. After a bit of searching, she found an old tin of matches. Using one, the stripping knives hanging on the wall to make shavings and kindling, she laid a fire with little help from me. Almost as soon as the last traces of light faded through the cracks in the wall and door, it turned freezing cold. The small fire seemed to take forever to catch and start warming the room up. "Emily, did you know where we were going?" She bit her lip and nodded. "I know where to go. And I know when we get there we can't eat nor drink nothing. But from there we can get back to the old woman's house without the fox man knowing. Do you know if the deputy's okay?" She looked up at me with scared eyes and shook her head. "I have to see to know." "What are you seeing here?" She grimaced. "I see green leaves and autumn leaves and snow drifting through the bare branches. It's kind of sickening. I see people sometimes, but they're not alive anymore, I think. I also see a glimmer. That is what I'm following because it will lead where we need to go." "How do you know that?" "The children pointed it out." The deputy watched the pair with a sigh. That child was seeing something. He knew something the moment he saw her. Now if she could just show him how to get into the fox's den, or whatever this thing called its lair. He moved the tarp and reached into it for the dynamite and boxes of blasting caps. He figured he'd had just about enough to make Broken Hill really live up to its name. Then he noticed 4-wheeler tracks. Fresh ones. Someone else was out here. Who? And why? His police training was kicking in hard. He started to call out for the two to return when he heard the yell echo oddly loud and clear. A voice he swore for a moment was his commander's. He narrowed his eyes and grabbed the rifle up and headed towards where the pair had last been. He jogged across the field, but they were gone when he got there. He swore and caught a glimpse of red gold hair vanish into the hill. Where had they gone, and who was doing the chasing? Something whispered in his ear. Emily can find the way. The demon, fox or whatever, was distracted. Perfect chance to try out his idea. No reason to be discreet as he headed back to the truck and drove it over the field. This water wasn't something natural to this area, so he was willing to bet it was frequented by that thing. He pulled the post hole digger out and set to work planting charges around the pool and up the hill. Paying close attention to the area he thought he saw the reddish hair vanish into. It was close to sunset before he was finished. For a moment he doubted himself. What if Emily was in there? What if it worked? What if it didn't? He lit the fuse and hopped in his truck, driving away. It wasn't loud, really, a muffled thunder, and he watched as the far tip of the hill set up a plume of dust, and the trees shook, and some even toppled over. He felt the truck rock and realized that that damn white beast was on his hood, head cocked to a side and watching the rain of debris. "Declaring war, are ye?" He heard the words, but there was no one to speak them. The voice was amused and carried a lilting accent. "Be ye back to the old one? Morning will bring a foulness." He couldn't find who was speaking, and the white beast had jumped off and vanished into the woods. He put the truck in gear and headed straight back to Granny's. He was glad the explosives were out of the truck as he bounced along the dirt tracks far faster than was safe. Granny was rocking on her porch, a single lantern burning as he tore open the door and leaped out. "Are they back yet? What had happened?" Granny looked at him and frowned. "Ain't been nothing. No one's been here since you left. Where be the other two? And why are you racing up here like the house is about to burn down?" He looked around the fields, willing two figures to be crossing in the twilight. Hell, willing the white beast to be out of the fields, but nothing save a mule and a few goats annoyed at him walking away. Then he ran a hand through his hair. "Oh, I think I'd done gone and tossed a hornet's nest in a bear den, and something bad is coming in the morning." Granny rose and headed inside. Only then did he see the shotgun that had been beside her on the porch. "Can't undo what's been done. Now we just deal with it." Morning seemed to never come, as Emily and I rationed firewood and tried not to think of the thin wood walls with gaps that allowed snow to flutter into the room. She had tied our hands together with a shoelace in case we both fell asleep, and that counted as losing sight of one another. Sleep was impossible. I worried about the fire going out. I worried about the door we couldn't lock. I worried about sounds I kept hearing. Scrapes on the wood, a snuffling noise. I swore at one point I saw a large, poison green eye looking in through the missing knothole. One that was a good foot over my head. Maybe it was there. Emily had squeezed my hand tight and gone stiff. She waited till sunlight peeked into that knothole before opening the door. I expected to see snowdrifts. Instead, 'twas spring. Yellow-green leaves just unfurling, red buds and dogwood and flower, and also rain. Miserable, chilly, relentless rain. We had water sort of to drink. Emily shuddered and breathed a deep sigh before heading into the forest. Sooner started, sooner ended. Soon we were both soaked to the skin. Our clothing weighed us down. Sometimes the trail we followed was through mud that squished and slid. Sometimes it was through underbrush that had tore at us and sent more water spraying onto our soaked skin. She had to stop me with a hand before I stepped too far and went down a sudden, sharp slope. Almost there. Emily was headed towards a V-shaped depression. It was then that I looked at the area she had led us to. It occurred to me that if you sliced Broken Hill off, flat, flipped it over, it would fit into this valley like a foot into a shoe. "Emily, this is the reverse of Broken Hill." She looked back at me. Her face was ghost pale, eyes sunken with exhaustion, bruised circles beneath her golden eyes. "Yes. Do not eat or drink anything unless sunlight is touching you, okay? We'll have to refuse anything offered until we stand in sunlight again. Understand? What sunlight? The day was gray, depressing clouds, and not a hint of sun. And who would offer, and why refuse? Clear as mud, but I'll do it. Good. Almost there. I didn't mention she'd already said that. She was moving out of sheer determination now. What she was looking for I couldn't see. Very few trees grew in this valley. Most were twisted and warped. I could see almost all of the valley, and nothing struck me as a safe refuge. She was waiting at a stone twice the size of my car near the bottom. Close your eyes and take my hand. Will be easier for you. Her hand was cold and shaking, and I reminded myself I had to trust her. She spoke the truth. Closed my eyes and let her lead me down the slope. Only the sound changed. And no rain. I opened my eyes to nothing. Blackness. Emily? Should have kept eyes closed a little longer. No light here that you can see. Almost there. It was getting on my nerves. Almost where? I don't know what to call it. Just there. The glow I thought was an illusion at first, but then I was seeing a large room, towering pillars with detailed carvings, highly polished floors, ornate chairs and tables. It was like a movie set. And then there was a voice. Who be dragging about my court? That man was here. Adrenaline coursed through me, ready to run, seek a weapon, protect Emily at any cost. But she was walking towards him. His eyes suddenly went huge, and he stumbled forward. My wee beauty, it is you? Danu, bless me. You're more lovely than I dreamed. The man stepped forward and took her hand and twirled her about. I had a vision of a dress, blue as twilight sky, of a wreath of heather and wild roses on her hair that was dry and glossy again. Oh, my lovely one, my clever girl. Oh, brand me a monster for what I must do, but be brave, my heart. The man turned and drew a tray off the table as I hurried to between him and Emily. On it were glasses of water, it seemed. Will you take a drink? Emily shook her head. Nay, 'tis only water. Drink. I cannot. 'Tis fresh drawn and cool. Bless you, but no. He threw the tray across the room and hugged Emily close. They began dancing, and that dress illusion was back. A billowing dress that swayed with her. Oh, you clever little one, forgive me. You are all my heart dreamed you'd be and more. Never has there been such a queen, and never again. Emily no longer looked exhausted. The illusion seemed to age her, turning her midnight hair into long waves, smoothing the worry from her face and brightening her eyes to sunlit honey. They whirled about, reminding me of that one movie, kids' movie with the rock star, and oh, too many very adult moments. There was the ballroom scene, only they didn't have masked people pressing against him. Only candlelight shadows flickering and shifting about them. Ah, forgive me, my sweet child. The man finally looked to me. Come, we must hurry. You two cannot stay here. Wound me as it shall to let my midnight star escape my arms. It is not yet her time, nor is this a place for ye. Follow and you'll come to as safe a place as any. He grabbed a candelabra off a table and led us down a hall then up a set of winding stairs. Guard her well, please. She's all I've dreamed of these long years. Keep her safe till I can pledge to her honest and openly. What was he talking of? He shoved me towards a door, and I pushed hard against it, only to tumble with Emily out into a creek bed. One I knew. We were both dry again, but she had that soul-worn look to her again, and the heather blossoms clinging to her tangled black hair. I looked out across the field to Granny's house. Almost there, I told her. She took care to place the hazel-colored contact lenses in perfectly. The drop of vinegar on each ensured her eyes were red and swollen quickly. Washing her face with hot water to flush her cheeks and wet her eyelashes. At last she looked at the mirror and smiled to herself. The image was perfect. A devastated and scared young woman stared back, if one didn't count the smile that she quickly dropped. Opening the door with a light sniffle, the paramedics almost backed into her. An apology, trying to be tactful about the fact he was removing a body bag from her bedroom. She whined and fled down the narrow hallway, not into her mother's arms, but stood looking panicked for a moment, till a female officer wrapped an arm about her shoulder. Poor little child. Come, you done seen enough. The woman glared at the mother, so wrapped up in her own grief she couldn't even offer the child a bit of comfort. She couldn't know the words that had passed before the first officer had arrived. The girl was actually surprised her mother wasn't dead yet. She'd given the woman enough time to blow her head off with one of dozens of guns in her parents' bedroom. Damn it all, she was going to have to push harder. The deputy led her around to the side of the house, out of the sight of the body bag being loaded into an ambulance. The old bastard needed a hearse, she ruefully thought. And it needed to go soon, else they might save her mother. She kept snuffling and gulping, seeming to be fighting the urge to weep and wail. A half a second later, she remembered something and wanted to curse herself out for an idiot. A shake of her head. I need to go inside. Mama will need me. She always said that she never wanted to outlive him. Just words, child. She'll prove stronger than you expect. Not if she had anything to say about it. She pulled away and headed back into her house. Her mother was no longer in the living room. She headed to the stove and opened the coffee pot, pulling out the small metal cup of coffee grounds. Walking over to the wood stove, she opened the door and tossed the damp grounds into the coals, following it with a pair of small logs. No one would think twice about using the fire to dispose of trash in this area, rinsing the grounds cup out completely, and the same with the pot, then setting it to brew a fresh batch. One of the officers nodded. Good girl, that one, thinking of others even in the worst of her young life. He noticed she set out milk, sugar, cups and spoons, enough for all on the table, then wiped away any trace of the mess. Tidy as her mother, too. Be a damn good wife to some man one day. She dried her hands and breathed a sigh of relief. No one would really have checked those grounds, she was pretty sure. But now there was none to check. She busied herself with putting away the dishes that had been left to dry from dinner. Damn it, she had not anticipated her mother being a coward. The woman certainly wasn't strong enough to have chosen to live, not knowing the shame that was to come. Or had her mother figured the lie out? No, she wasn't that bright. Her darling husband had just been taken out of her daughter's room, dead as a doornail, and naked as the day he was born. Soon the police might ask about that. She made sure to place the bathrobe she had pulled off of him into the clothes hamper. No one would know that she had helped him into her bedroom from the single bathroom that was next to it. No, all they saw was a man sprawled half on his child's bed, dead of a heart attack. The coffee finished, and she poured it into an insulated carafe and started a second pot, careful to make her actions identical to earlier, tossing the grounds into the now nicely roasting fire and carefully cleaning everything out again. One of the officers knocked discreetly on the bathroom door, calling out to her mother. So that's where the bitch was. More tapping, louder, more insistent. Then a quick shove of his shoulder popped open the flimsy door. He yelled to get the ambulance back and get her out of the house. She raced towards the bathroom, seeing the blood that had caused the alarm running into the linoleum pattern of the hallway. The stillness was mistaken for shock. No, it really was shock. Cassie didn't think the stupid bitch had it in her to slit her wrist, or the brains to do it right. She started screaming to keep from laughing. So quoth this raven. Oh, my darlings, it is such a fabulous story. And dear Gelfwyn, I'm not going to push her because I know she's got things keeping her ever so busy. But I know, I can't wait to see how this ends. I'm sure you're with me on it. Go to Gelfwyn's page, Quill and Sword, and check her out on Reddit and give her some love for all the wonderful stories she shares. And if you like my readings, my darling, like, subscribe, ring that little bell so you'll be notified when you can come up and see me. And if you leave a comment, I will comment back. Bye-bye, my darlings.